Erev Tov, everyone, and welcome. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars, therefore it must be the Torah study with Rabbi A and sometimes Reb Reuven. Sometimes. Um, let's see if we can raise him. Let's see. Try that. And we'll see what happens here. Maybe we can get him to answer. Hope everything's all right with him. Anyway, while we're waiting for that, I want to welcome those of you in the chat room. Claire, Donald, Kelsey Lynn, Guy, Marshall, Shlomo, Shoshi, and Dennis. Good to have you all with us. Seems that Reb Reuven is not on the computer. So hopefully he will come and join us later on. Either that or I'm going to have to jump in the car and drive over there and see what is going on with him. Okay. So where are we? Okay, we are still in the chapter Bereshit. We are in chapter 30 and verse 27 is where we left off. Now remember, at this point, Yaakov has 11 sons now. Rachel has just given birth to Yosef, and Yaakov has asked Lavan, his father-in-law, to leave. Asked him that, give him leave, let him go back to the land. So, before we get into Rashi's commentary, let's catch up with the Sefer Haggadah. Big, heavy book. Okay. And let's see what we got there. So we left off where Yaakov had left the Be'er-Sheva. Okay, we'll get caught up here. So when Yaakov went out from Be'er-Sheva, he departed. The departure of the righteous man from the city leaves a mark. When the righteous man in the city, he is its luster. He is renowned, its glory. Once he leaves, gone is the luster, gone is the renown, gone is the glory. And he got to Haran. After Yaakov reached Haran, he asked himself, is it possible that I passed by Moriah, and the place where my fathers prayed, and I did not pray? As he was deciding to return, the earth contracted, bringing Moriah close to Haran, so that he encountered the place. And as we learned when we were reading this, that Rashi says that it was the term that he encountered the place was supposed to be said with astonishment that it had actually happened so quickly. And came up to meet him. After he finished praying, he wanted to return to Haran. But the Holy One said, the righteous man has come to my dwelling place. Shall he depart without a night's lodging there? Immediately the sun set. And again, we see this in the Torah, in the narrative, and in Rashi's commentary that it overtook him suddenly. He wasn't expecting the sun to set that quick. because the sun had set. Uh, read rather Kibbah. Okay. So, because the sun had set in the Torah, it says Kibbah. Read rather Kibbah, extinguished. God extinguished the sun. That is, God caused the sun to set prematurely so that he might speak to Yaakov in privacy. God's intention may be understood by the parable of the king's close friend who visited him occasionally. The king will command, extinguish the lamps, extinguish the lanterns, because I will speak to my friend in privacy. And he took the stones from the place. This is Yaakov. Fearful of wild beasts, Yaakov put stones around him in a circle, the way a drain pipe encircles a roof, hoping that the enclosure would provide protection. Then the stones began to quarrel among themselves. One said, let the righteous one put his head against me. The other said, let him put it against me. Until finally the stones coalesced one with the other and became one stone. Hence the scripture could go on to say that those stones, he took the stone which he put at his head. And he dreamed. And behold, angels of God ascending and descending. The Holy One showed Yaakov the angelic princes of the four kingdoms ascending and descending. But then, behold, the Lord stood beside him. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, one of my favorites, said, were it not expressly stated in Scripture, we would not dare suggest that when God comes to protect Israel, he comes as close to them as a man fanning his son. Rabbi Abahu said, God's presence in the dream may be illustrated by the parable of the infant prince who was sleeping in the cradle while flies were sitting upon him. The moment his wet nurse came by and bent over him, they fled. So too the first, behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it, but the moment the Holy One revealed himself hovering over Yaakov, they fled. Okay. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it and to thy seed. Rabbi Isaac said, the verse implies that the Holy One folded up the entire land of Israel and put it under our father Yaakov, as if to say to him that it will be easily conquered by his children. Rabbi Shimon said, in the name of Bar Kapara, God folded it up like a register tablet and put it under Yaakov's head. As the saying goes, wherever is your head is yours. Wherever your thoughts are is where you are, in other words. Then Yaakov lifted up his feet. Rabbi Aha said, exhilarating news gives healing to a weary heart. As soon as Yaakov received the exhilarating news of God's promise to his progeny, his heart lifted up and his feet caused them to move at great speed. And he asked the herdsman, is Lavan at peace with his employees? Is there peace between him and you? Speaking of the herdsmen that were coming to the well. And they replied, there is peace. But if you wish to engage in chit-chat, behold, Rachel, his daughter, cometh with the sheep. As the saying goes, women are chatterboxes. Now, I didn't say this. Now, if you want to take issue with that, then you're going to have to go back a few hundred years and talk to the rabbis. Okay. And it came to pass. I'm not saying he's wrong either, but be that as it may, we'll move on. Just checking to see if anybody else has come in. Okay. And it came to pass when Yaakov saw Rachel that Yaakov went near. He rolled the stone from the well's mouth. He moved it easily, said Rabbi Yohanan, as one pulls the stopper out of a vial. Okay, and this is the point that I was making, is that he did not roll the stone off. He actually picked it up and moved it and placed it down. Okay, and Yaakov kissed Rachel. All kisses are frivolous except three. The kiss of homage, the kiss after long separation, and the kiss of parting. The kiss of homage, Shmuel said, the vial of oil is pour it upon Saul's head, and kissed him. The kiss after long separation, Aharon went and met Moshe at the mountain of God and kissed him. The kiss of parting, Orpah kissed her mother-in-law from Ruth. Also the kiss of kinship, and Rabbi Tanhuma's as when Yaakov kissed Rachel, she being his kinswoman. Yaakov lifted up his voice and wept. Why did he weep? Because he said, what is said about Eleazar when he went to fetch Rivkah? The servant took 10 camels of goodly things, and so on. Whereas I have not even one earring or one bracelet. Another reason for his weeping, he saw that because he kissed Rachel, the herdsmen were whispering among themselves, What is this one come to bring unchastity back into our midst? For ever since the world was smitten during the generation of the flood, the nations imposed restraint upon themselves with regard to unchastity. As the saying goes, people of the East hedge themselves in from unchastity. I don't know who says that, but evidently somebody knows that that's what they said. Okay. And it came to pass when Lavan heard, he reasoned. Eleazar was an insignificant member of Abraham's house. Yet it is written of him, the servant took 10 camels, and this one who is the household's favorite, how much more and more is he apt to have to offer me? But when Lavan did not even see a sack of food on him, he embraced him, feeling his waist and thinking he must have money, and it is hidden in his belt. And when he found not a penny, he kissed him, thinking that perhaps he has pearls in, and he's keeping safe in his mouth. Or only when he did realize that Yaakov brought nothing at all, Yaakov said, "What do you think? That I came laden with wealth? All I have come laden with is a grievous account of what happened to me." And he told Lavan. In that case, Lavan said, Surely for thee are mere bone. I have intended to treat you like a king, but since you have nothing, I need do no more than toss you a bone. Nevertheless, Lavan went on, Art thou expected to serve me for naught? Yaakov replied, Do you suppose that I have come to haggle about money? I have come only because of the two maidens. And Laban had two daughters, who were, so to speak, like two joists reaching from one end of the world to the other. One produced generals, and the other produced the one produced generals, and the other produced generals. One produced kings, and the other produced kings. Out of one arose lion slayers, and one out of the other arose lion slayers. Out of one arose prophets, and out of the other arose prophets. Out of one arose judges, and out of the other arose judges. Out of one arose conquerors of countries, and out of the other arose conquerors of countries. Out of one arose apportioners of allotted parts of land, and out of the other arose proportioners of allotted parts of land. Okay. Leah had weak eyes. Rav said they were weak was no disgrace for her, but cause for praise. For at the crossroads she used to hear people say, Rivka has two sons, and Lavan has two daughters. The older daughter should wed the older son, and the younger son. So she sat at the crossroads, asking all passerby, the older one, what kind of person is he? And was told, a cunning hunter, a wicked man, given to robbing people. And the younger, what kind of person is he? A quiet man, dwelling in tents. At that, Leah wept so much that her eyelids seemed to disappear. Rabbi Jonathan said, God's intention was that the birthright should have stemmed from Rachel, for it is said, these are the generations of Yaakov, Yosef, but through her prayer for God's mercy to spare her from marrying Esau, Leah got ahead of Rachel in the birthright. Nevertheless, because of Rachel's effacing herself, the Holy One restored her birthright to Rachel. And with what showed Rachel's capacity for efficacy herself, to the following verse as will be explained. And Yaakov told Rachel that he was her father's brother. Was Yaakov her father's brother? Was he not in fact a son of her father's sister? However, Yaakov described himself as her father's brother. After he asked Rachel, will you marry me? And she replied, yes, but my father is a trickster, and you cannot beat him in trickery. Yaakov asked, how would he trick me? And she replied, I have an older sister, and he will not have me marry ahead of her. It was then that Yaakov said, in trickery, I am your father's brother. She asked, but is it proper for a righteous man to resort to trickery? He replied, yes, for we read, with the pure thou dost show thyself pure, and with the crooked thou dost show thyself crooked, or show thyself wily. So he gave her certain tokens, by which to identify herself. But when the wedding night came, Rachel said to herself, "Now my sister will be humiliated." So she turned the tokens over to Leah. Hence it is said, "And he came to pass in the morning, and behold, it was Leah." And these words are to be construed as saying that until morning she was not Leah. Is that the question? She was until the morning. Wasn't she Leah? No. What is meant is that because of the tokens Rachel had turned over to her, Yaakov did not know until morning it was Leah. And as I said before, that the rabbis had said that because they were sisters and they looked very, very much alike, so it was easy. I mean, he walks into a tent, imagining the tent's probably very, very dimly lit. So, okay. Yaakov said, "I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter, because I know that the people of your town are tricksters. I make my request thoroughly clear. I will serve thee for Rachel, not for Leah, thy daughter, so that you will not bring some other woman from the marketplace who happens to have the name of Rachel, the younger. Do not try to have them exchange names." Nevertheless, then the evening came. Lavan took his daughter Leah and brought her to him. Yaakov's explicit stipulation did not avail him, for, as the saying goes, even if you clamp a scoundrel in a carpenter's vice, it will not avail you. He will wiggle out of it. And Lavan gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. He gathered all the men of the place where he lived and said, "You know how short of water we were? As soon as this righteous man appeared, water became abundant." They asked, "So what do you have in mind?" He replied, "If you go along, I will trick him and give him Leah instead. But since he loves Rachel much more, he is bound to work for you yet another 7 years." They replied, "Do as you wish." He said, "Give me pledges that not one of you will disclose my plan to anyone." They brought the pledges, and Lavan used them to buy oil, wine, and meat for the wedding. For this reason, he was dubbed Lavan the Aramean, that is to say, the cheat, because he cheated even the people of his own place. All day long, the people gathered at the feast wished Yaakov joy. At dusk, they continued to do so. Yaakov asked, "Why so much congratulations?" They replied, Your merit conferred a great boon upon us, so we too wish to confer a boon upon you." Then, while apparently engaged in nothing other than wishing him well, they yielded Hallelujah, seemingly a cry of joy, but in fact a hint. It is Leah. It is Leah. In the evening, having led the bride into the nuptial chamber, the ushers put out the lamps. When Yaakov asked, "Why are you doing this?" they replied, "What do you think? What, are we as shameless as you?" All that night Yaakov kept calling his bride Rachel, and Leah answered to the name. But in the morning, behold, it was Leah. Said Yaakov to Leah, "What is this?" O trickstress, a daughter of a trickster? Did not did I not call you Rachel all night long, and you answered to the name? She replied, Is there a teacher who has no pupils? Did not your father once call you Esau, and you answered to the name? Oh, snap! I have a great deal of love and respect for Leah. As I said, she was actually more righteous than Rachel. She was a prophetess, and she was quick-witted. Okay, so okay, so and the Lord saw that Leah was held in disdain. All held her in disdain. Sea rats disdained her. Vagrants disdained her. Even the loose grape treading woman behind the beams of the winepress disdained her, saying, This Leah, she is not in private what she is in the open. She looks like a good woman, but really isn't. If she were, she would not have tricked her sister. Rabbi Hanin said, in the name of Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzhak, when our father Yaakov saw how Leah had deceived him, he made up his mind to divorce her. But after the Holy One visited her with children, he said, Shall I divorce the mother of these children? Rabbi Hanina bar Yitzhak said, Rather, the threatening mien of the fathers, that the conciliatory manner of their descendants, that the threatening mien of the father is endurable, we learn from our father Yaakov. Though Yaakov became wroth, took up his grievance with Lavan, he said no more to Lavan than, What is my sin that thou hast hotly pursued after me? You might have supposed that such words were a preamble to blows or bruises, but in fact Yaakov went on to conciliate his father-in-law with calming words. Though thou art rummaging through all my stuff, what single one of all thy household things hast thou found? Shimon pointed out, usually when a son-in-law has been living with his father-in-law, is it not likely at the very least that there will be found in his possession some trifles such as a knife? But here thou hast rummaged through all my stuff, and not even a needle or a pin did you find. On the other hand, the conciliatory manner of the descendants of the fathers is not endurable. We may learn this from David. David fled from Noit in Ramah and came and said before Nachman, What have I done? What is my guilt? And what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life? Thus, through seeking consolation, David mentioned Saul's murderous intent, but all Yaakov said to Laban was, Thou hast hotly pursued after me. Okay, so that gets us caught up in the at least to the point where we are now. Okay, so we'll set this off to the side. And we'll bring Rashi back over. Of course, before we start reading this, we'll say the bracha barakat Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'divrei Torah. Verse 27. But Lavan said to him, if I have found favor in your eyes, I have learned by divination that Hashem has blessed me on account of you. Rashi's commentary says, I have learned by divination. He was a diviner. Lavan said to Yaakov, I have probed with my divination and found that it was through you that the blessing of sons came to me. For when you came here, I had no sons. As it says, and see, his daughter Rachel was coming with the flock. Is it possible that he would have sons, and he would send his daughter to be the shepherds, or to be with the shepherds? Now, after Yaakov had come, he had sons, as it says. Then he heard the words of Lavan's sons. Okay, the further commentary says the following text is the early printed edition of Rashi. Many contemporary editions read, Haiti, I was. Okay, that's in refer to he was a diviner. Moving on, if Lavan had older sons, okay, now this is related to, is it possible that he would have sons and he would send his daughter to be with the shepherds? If Lavan had older sons, he would have sent them rather than his daughter. If he had younger sons, he would have kept Rachel home to care for them, for Lavan's wife had died, as Rashi mentioned above in previously. Okay, so that gets us up here to verse 28. Check the chat room, see what's going on there. Not a lot of discussion going on there. Okay. So verse 28, very short commentary on this one. 28, and he said, specify your wage to me, and I will give it. Rashi says, specify your wage. This is to be understood as Targum Onkelos renders it, spell out your wage. The further commentary on this says, the word could mean she specified. Rashi cites Targum Onkelos to show that here the word is the imperative and means specify. We find the same form of the imperative in other verses. Zachara can mean she remembered or remember. So imperative, remember. Okay, and Shimra, which can mean she guarded or guard. Okay, moving on to verse 29. But he said to him, you are aware of how I worked for you and what your livestock were to me. Rashi says, and what your livestock were to me, the paltry total of your livestock, which came to my hand, i.e., into my care at first, how much were they? The further commentary says on this that the term ve'et ashar hayal mitnecha iti does not mean and how long your livestock was with me, for the next phrase, for the little that you had, indicates that Yaakov was referring to the amount of livestock. Okay, verse 30. For the little that you had before I came has expanded substantially, as Hashem has blessed you with my coming. And now when will I also do something for my own house? Rashi says, literally, my foot. Ragli. This means because of the arrival of my foot to you, with the coming of my foot, a blessing came to you. The word, the ragli, is used here in the same sense as baraglicha, in the entire people who are at your feet, and baragli, to the people who are at my feet, which means who comes with me. When will I also do something for my own house? For the needs of my whole household. Presently, there are none who work for my needs except for my sons. And I also must work with them to supplement them. This is the implication of also. Okay, so the further commentary on this. The prefix lamed, the lamed prefix, is used here in the sense of because of. Okay, so let's clarify that. We're talking about 8 here, which is in here somewhere. That's 7. Okay, and okay, because of the arrival of my foot to you. Okay, so the prefix l'ragli, the lamed, is used here in the sense of because, or because of. Okay, there are many variants of this. There are many variants of this Rashi. One text follows the Reggio di Calabria edition. The verse that appears in many contemporary editions follows the Venice edition. It read, Im ragli. The word ragli means with my feet. Bishvil birat ragli atzalacha, because of the arrival of my foot to you, the blessing came to you. And okay, so we have Targum Oxalus, or Targum Yochasan, Yonasan. Yaakov is not using for my own house, in contrast to for you. For this, he is not suggesting that he leave Lavan's employ to work for himself. Rather, he wishes to continue working for Lavan, but to earn wages for the needs of his household. Interesting. Okay, so 7. I know this ended at 7. Excuse me. There it is. Oh, 5. Okay, so that's all we have for this point. Okay, so we move on. Verse 31. There is no commentary on 31, so we will go right from 31 to 32. He said, "What shall I give you?" And Yaakov said, "Do not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will resume pasturing and guarding your flock." Verse 32. Let me pass through your whole flock today. Remove from there every speckled, dappled lamb, every brownish lamb among the sheep, and the dappled or speckled among the goats. That will be my wage. Rashi comments on here. Speckled. Menumar. Nakod. Memunar dotted. Burot. The kot. With fine spots. The word nakud is similar to the word nekuda, a point, pointure in Old French, or dappled. This means patch, wide, i.e., large spots. Brownish. This is rendered by Targum Onkelos as auburn, similar to red, i.e., reddish brown. Rose in Old French, for those of you out there who are Old French. In the language of the Mishnah, we find a similar word, reddish brown, and it was found to be white, which is said with regard to the color of crops. That will be my wage. Those which are born from now on, which are speckled and dappled among the goats and auburn among the sheep, will be mine. Those, continued on the next page, which are presently speckled or dappled among the goats and the auburn among the sheep, separate from the flock I will care for, and entrust them to the hands of your son, so that you should not say to me about those which will be born from now on, these were among the flock from the start. And furthermore, I want you to set aside those goats and sheep, so that you should not say to me, by means of the males, which are speckled and dappled, the females will give birth to ones resembling them from now on. Okay, so let's go up and catch up with the further commentary. Okay, so among the many meanings, this Old French term means a number of points, i.e. small spots. In modern French, roux, russet, reddish brown. Okay, so from Bava Bartra, folio 38b, Rashi cites Targum Onkelos to show that whom is the Aramaic equivalent of whom of our verse, and goes on to cite the Mishnah to show that Shechum or Shechamtit is not pure brown, but a reddish shade, as the context there indicates. According to Reb David and Nachalat, Yaakov, Rashi did not mean that Yaakov was to take only the sheep that had a single quality of being auburn. Because we kind of may have actually drawn that conclusion from what we are reading here, because it always says auburn on the sheep. He means that Yaakov would take those sheep which were auburn in addition to those which were speckled and dappled. According to Rambam, the most of Rashi's other commentators, he means that Yaakov would take sheep which were completely auburn, but not those to which were speckled and dappled. So we'd have dispute even among the rabbis and the sages. Okay, so that is Yaakov asked Lavan to separate the speckled and the dappled goats and the auburn sheep so that Lavan should not accuse Yaakov of intentionally breeding those types. Oh, excuse me. A little dry in here tonight. Okay. Okay, now we're going to get into some grammar. Make sure that we're actually still... Nope, this goes on to the... It's related to the next one. So we'll go on to 33. Let my integrity testify for me in the future when it will come regarding my wage before you. Any that is not speckled or dappled among the goats or brownish among the sheep is stolen in my possession. Okay, stolen if in my possession. Okay, Rashi says, let my integrity testify for me. If you should suspect me that I take anything of yours, my integrity will testify for me. When my integrity will come and testify regarding my wage before you, because you will not find in my herd anything but speckled and dappled ones, and any which are which you will find among them that are not speckled or dappled or auburn, you can presume to have been stolen by me from you. The rest is my possession, and rest in my possession through theft. Okay, so basically, if you find it in mine, you can assume that I stole it. Okay, so the second person masculine of third person. Okay, you might need to write this down to follow it. Second person masculine and third person feminine take the same form in the future tense singular. Thus, tavo can mean you, masculine, will come, or she or it will come. Rashi indicates here that tavo must be in the third person feminine, and that its subject is zidkati, my integrity. It cannot be the second person masculine, you will come, addressed to Lavan, for the verse cannot say, you will come before you. Makes sense. Okay, anything but speckled and dappled ones. The further commentary on that says, this describes how Yaakov's integrity will be evident. And then finally, the rest in my possession through theft. The verse could have said only any among the goats is stolen. Any among the goats that you find that is not so and such is stolen. The apparently superfluous in my possession indicates that Yaakov meant that it may be presumed that he had stole it and it came into his possession through theft. He would not claim that someone else stole it and sold it to him. Okay. Moving on. We're on verse 34. And Lavan said, yes, if only it will be as you say. Rashi says, yes. This means acceptance of, i.e., argument to another's words. If only it will be as you say. If only you will want this. So if that's all you want. Okay, so the further commentary on this has to by means of acceptance, agreement of one's word, Targum Yonasan. The word Cain here is not a shortened form, Hina, behold. It is as it is in 322 above. In this, Rashi disagrees with Ebenezer, who equates Cain as Hine in our verse also. Moving on, regarded to if only you will want this, Targum Yonasan and Targum Onkelos, Levan's will be indicates that he is expressing some hope for the future. But if it is not clear from the context what it is in the future that he is hoping for, Rashi explains that he hopes that Yaakov will keep the terms of the agreement that he has set and not regret them. Rashi uses if only in place of lo, because lu, because lu can also mean perhaps. If it were used here in the sense Lavan would be saying, perhaps it will be as you say, as if to suggest that he does not necessarily accept Yaakov's terms. Okay, so that brings us to a little past our break, actually. So we are going to take our break here, and I'm going to put on Shlomo Randall's favoriteest movie and music for our break. And when we return, we will pick up where we left off. And stay tuned, and we will be back in 6. If it's going to run.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay. So, we left off on chapter 30, verse 35. So he removed on that day the ringed, the dappled he-goats, and all the speckled and dappled goats, every one that had white on it, as well as all the brownish ones among the sheep, and he put them in the charge of his sons. Okay. So he removed. Lavan removed on that day. Okay. The he-goats. This means the male goats. Not really sure why Rashi thought that was significant to actually mention, but evidently it was. Everyone that had white on it. Whatever had in it a white spot. And Lavan put them in charge of his sons. Now, if we just go back and we read it, we would think, you would naturally draw the conclusion that it was Yaakov that actually went through and took them all and put them in the charge of his sons, but that's not the case. It was Lavan who removed them and put them in the charge of Lavan's sons. The further commentary on this says, in line with the comments on verse 32, Rashi explains that it was Lavan who removed the ringed, speckled, and spotted goats, for Yaakov was to only take goats such as these, which would be born in the future. This is unlike our commentators who understand that even the goats such as these, which were presently among the flock of Lavan, were to go to Yaakov. According to them, Yaakov is the subject of so he removed. Verse 32 sets forth the criteria for the sheep and the goats which Lavan was to remove, but it makes no mention of having white on it, as our verse does. But forms of the word a spot which Rashi uses here, appears in his definition of nekod, speckled, and telu, dappled, in verse 32, by saying everyone that had white on it. The verse indicates that Lavan extended the definition of speckled to include goats that had even a single white spot on them. Furthermore, if that weren't enough, the word Lavan is an adjective. Rashi supplies the implicit noun which it describes, and he gets that from Be'er Yitzhak. So let's see, 3 in the charge of his sons. It was not Yaakov who put them in the charge of his sons. See note 1, which we already read. 4, okay. Those did Lavan give over to him. Okay, Tehuma, Yishan, Bereshit Rabah. There are 2 words here that means the remained. Hanotar and it's Nishiar. Hanishar indicates that which is left is the more significant portion. Hanotar indicates that which is left is the less significant. The use of hanotarot rather than hanisharot in our verse implies that the ones that remained to Yaakov were of inferior quality. Okay, so that brings us to verse 36. And he put a distance of 3 days between himself and Yaakov tended Lavan's flock that remained. Rashi says that remained, the low grade among them, the sick ones and the barren ones, which were nothing but remainders, i.e. leftovers. Those did Lavan give over to him. Okay, now we're on to 37. Yaakov took himself a moist rod of poplar and hazel and chestnut. He peeled white strips in them, laying bare the white of the rods. Okay. Rashi says, if we can get back to that page, a rod of poplar. It is a tree whose name is Livneh. Livneh. As you say, i.e., as the verse, beneath oak and poplar, and I say it is the one they called tremblay in Old French. Again, for all of you Old French out there. In modern French, this is further commentary. In modern French, modern as far as who goes, it could, Rashi is talking about Old French. This could maybe be a couple of generations later. Modern French, tremblay, puplier, tremblay, quaking aspen, or trembling poplar, a poplar tree whose leaves flutter in the slightest breeze. Okay. Good to know, right? Okay, so we continue on. which is white. Again, we're back on the poplar. Further commentary on that says, although the end of the verse says that the white appears only after Yaakov peeled the rods, this was true only of the hazelnut and chestnut. The poplar is naturally white. Okay, moist when it is fresh. The further commentary says the bark of the trembling poplar is white only while it is still fresh in the springtime. As it ages toward the fall, the bark becomes dark and hazel. And additionally, he took a rod of hazel, a tree on which grow small nuts, coldre in Old French. Okay, and the further commentary on that. Okay. Additionally, Rashi sets off hazel from moist. For the hazel and the chestnut, Yaakov took word not moist. Had they been, the word lach would have appeared in the verse after all of the types of wood had been mentioned. Adding the word makal here, Rashi indicates that the word makal at the beginning of the verse refers to luv and amon, as well as limne. In this, Rashi agrees with Targum Onkelos, who renders the singular mukal as the plural terin. Okay. And chestnut. Chastigner in Old French. Again, my French is very poor. I haven't spoken French since I was 13. That was a long time ago. Okay. Strippings, many peelings. He made it spotted. Literally laying bare the white exposure of the whiteness of the stick. When he would peel it, the whiteness would appear to be exposed in the peeled place. Okay, so we're on to 38. And he stuck the rods which he had peeled in the runnels in the watering pools to which the flocks would come to drink, facing the flock, so they would become heated when they came to drink. Rashi says, and he stuck. Targum Onkelos renders this. It means inserting and sticking in. Belashon Arami in the Aramaean language. There are many examples of related Aramaic words. In the Talmud, he had stuck the plant into a flower pot and had subsequently pulled it out. He stuck something into it. The word that appears in the Talmud is the equivalent of the tzam, but it shortens the language by omitting a letter of its root. In the streams, he placed the rods in the running streams of water, in the pools that are made in the ground, to water the sheep, to which the flocks would come. In the streams to which the flocks would come to drink, there he did stick the rods facing the flocks. So they would become heated when they would come to drink. The animals would see the rods, and it would jump back, and the males would fertilize it. And it would bear children which resembled it, i.e., the spotted stick. The Amorah, Rabbi Hoshaim, says, the water became semen in their innards, and they did not need a male to impregnate them. And this what is meant by so they would become heated when they would come to drink. Okay, I might take issue with that, but the Talmudic form of the word without the ayin is the equivalent of the Tagumic form with the ayin. Okay. 12, which is related to by omitting the letter of the root. The ayin of the root, dalet ayin zadi sofit, is a guttural, a class of letter which falls out of the word in some instances. So instead of instead of a 3-letter root, it becomes a 2-letter root in some cases. Okay. 13. In the running streams of water, by equating Hatim with Mirutzot, Rashi points out that Hatim is form of Aramaic root of Resh He Tet, to run, which is the equivalent of the Hebrew Resh Bet Resh Vav Ayin Safit or Tzadi Safit, which is the root of Miritzot. Okay, and then the to water the sheep there. Here Rashi notes that Shekatot is related to the Shishkot, to water to give drink. Okay, so facing the flocks. Facing the flocks. Facing the flocks is not linked to drink, which immediately precedes it. If it were, the verse would say that the flocks drank facing the flocks, i.e., facing themselves. Facing the flocks refers back to the rods, which I guess makes sense. Okay, they can't face themselves, so obviously it has to be facing the rods. Okay, and the males would fertilize it. It is the nature of water to cool animals, not to heat them. Rashi explains here that heating is used in the sense of conception, which usually occurs in the heat of passion or when animals are in heat. Okay, and then we'll go down to find 4. And they will become heated when they would come to drink. The feminine form of and so they would become heated is Vetehimna. The masculine is Vayahemu, as in the next verse. Vayahamna. Yeah, Chana. In our verse is a hybrid of the feminine and the masculine with, and this is what is meant by so they would become heated. Rashi mentions that Rabbi Hoshea's comment explains this anomaly. The hybrid word is used because the female sheep took on the roles of both male and female. They fertilized themselves. Rashi here deals with a similar problem in the comments to the hybrid word Vayesharna in Samuel. Okay. But we're not reading Samuel, so we will move on. We are at 39. Okay, and then the flocks became heated by the rods, and the flocks gave birth to ringed ones, speckled ones, and dappled ones. No further commentary on this. Just refers back to Bereshit Rabbi. It was not the rods themselves which caused the fertilization. Okay. Ringed ones. They were distinct at the place where they are bound. The further commentary says it was the practice to bind the forelegs and the hind legs of cattle together to prevent them from running away. Okay, literally at the place where we're bound. Okay, ringed at the place where they were bound, which are the ankles of the forelegs and the hind legs. Okay. Verse 40, Yaakov segregated the lambs, and he put the face of the flock toward the ringed and the brownish ones among Lavan's flock. He made separate herds of his own and did not mingle them with Lavan's flocks. Okay. Yaakov segregated the lambs, those that were born ringed and speckled. The further commentary says David and Nachalat Yaakov point to this line of Rashi in support of their position that according to Rashi, Yaakov did not keep only all of the auburn sheep, but he kept those that were ringed and speckled as well. According to the other opinion, that Yaakov only kept the sheep that were entirely auburn, he nonetheless made separate herds of the newly born ringed and speckled sheep so that they should walk ahead of the goats, and thereby the goats would conceive young ones which were ringed and speckled and would belong to Yaakov. He kept the older ringed and speckled sheep in the rear, however, behind the auburn goats, so that they should give birth to auburn young. According to both opinions, Rashi points out that Yaakov segregated the lambs. Does not mean that he separated all the lambs from all the goats. It means that he separated ringed and speckled sheep from other sheep so that the goats should walk behind them. Evidently, goats have a thing for ringed and speckled, I guess. Okay. So we are on verse 41. We'll see if we can get to the end of the chapter here this evening. 41. Whenever it was mating time for the early-bearing flocks, Yaakov would place the rods and the runnels in full view of the flocks to stimulate them among the rods. Rashi goes on to say the early bearing, this is to be understood as Targum Onkelos renders it with the Aramaic word, which is the equivalent of the Hebrew word, that those that give birth early. But Targum Onkelos translation has no evidence for Scripture to support it. Menachem classified it as of Achitophel is among the conspirators, and the cabal was firm. In our verse, it means those who join together to hurry their pregnancy, i.e., give birth early. Okay, so according to Nachalat Yaakov and David, he made separate herds of his own. Does not mean that he kept the flocks that were his in isolation from Laban's. It means that he made distinct herds of them, which he would put at the head of Laban's flocks. According to Levush, Ha'orah, and Mizrahi, it does not refer to flocks that belong to Yaakov at all. It means that he made distinct herds of ringed and speckled sheep that belonged to Laban, which he would put at the head of Laban's flock. Okay, just as Yaakov arranged for the goats to face the ringed sheep, so did he arrange for the sheep to face the brownish goats. For himself, which is back here, those who give birth early. There's no evidence for this. To support this. Go back. Oh, okay. He formed for himself separate droves, as I have explained, says Rashi. For himself could have been taken to referring to ownership. The verse might have been understood as saying that Yaakov separated all the flocks that belonged to him from those of Laban. According to Rashi, however, for himself implies that Yaakov formed distinct droves for his benefit, as he explained in the preceding comment. Okay. Verse 42, but when the sheep were late-bearing, he would not in place. Thus the late-bearing ones went to Laban, and the early-bearing ones to Yaakov. Rashi says, but when the sheep were late-bearing, this means delay, as Targum Onkelos renders it, and with a postponement. Menachem, all of a sudden now we're referencing Menachem in here. And Menachem classified it with of mats and the sheets. In our verse, it means wrapping oneself in a garment, as if to say they would wrap themselves in their skin and their wool, and would not desire to be heated, i.e., to conceive, by means of the males. Okay. Verse 43, which is the last verse of the chapter, and where we will stop tonight. The man became exceedingly prosperous, and he had proliferating flocks and slave women and slaves and camels and donkeys. Rashi says proliferating flocks, they are fruitful and multiply more than other flocks. The further commentary on this says that okay, now that one I might have to. Zon Rabot does not mean many flocks. Many with respect to a collective noun such as zon would be expressed by Rav, as in Mignerav, much livestock, or by Harbe, as in Baton Harbe, Rabot in particular. See also Exodus, which uses Rabbah, the singular of Rabot in this manner. Okay. And slave women and slaves. He would sell his flocks at a high price and buy all these for himself. Tehuma Yashan 24. Lavan paid Yaakov only in flocks. If he had slaves, he must have bought them with money he acquired by selling flocks. And there we go. And that is where we are going to stop for this week. Put my bookmark there so I know where I left off. Okay. Glad you were all here to be with us this evening. Don't forget that, just checking to see if there's anything in the chat room. Okay, so don't forget that on, Friday evening at 8 p.m. is Kabbalat in Ma'ariv Shabbat service. And on Shabbat morning at 10 a.m., of course, all Eastern, is Shacharit and Musaf. And Monday night is Zeta's Story Corner at 8 p.m. And, of course, next week, right back here, that we are here. Next, would be nice if we weren't. If Mashiach will come between now and then, we probably won't be here, which would be a really good thing. But just in case Mashiach does not come, we will be here next Wednesday at 8. I don't know what day it is. Next Wednesday at 8 p.m. So I hope you will return with us. And until the next time, we will simply say, Leil Tov.